Hi, good morning. Thank you for coming for the first session of Process, Measures, and Analysis. So this is our inaugural talk, and it's an organized approach to process improvement with Sean Monroe. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. So I was just adding some slides because I realized not everybody even knew what ESR was. So I wanted to start off with just briefly explaining ESR to kind of explain all of the landscape of everything we're doing. Looks like we need some process improvement on our clicker.
Oh, because this computer, right? Okay.
No, it should be good. It was working, of course, right before we started. So we'll go.
There you go.
So ESR is something that we've recently taken on at UCSC. Very, very large system renewal change. It's enterprise system renewal, but really what that means is we're pretty much changing all of the big systems on campus. Anywhere from HR, facilities management, finance, payroll. There's a whole list of them right there. A lot of the student systems, how they do financial aid, all over the campus. Pretty much any system that any of our staff interact with is getting replaced. And we decided to do it all in one big bang. If you look at this timeline, there's a lot of stuff happening right now. It's a whole program with all of these individual projects underneath it. So a lot of moving pieces out there, a lot of stuff that's happening with all of these brand new systems coming to campus. And they're enterprise systems, so they're large organizational systems that are really meant to fill a lot of process needs, things we need to get done on the campus, and do it in a way that we could all share. In the past, it's been a lot of silos, so we're really trying to break that down with this future vision of ESR. So just wanted to share that so everybody knew what ESR was, so they understand what Lean Bench is and what we're doing here. So what Lean Bench is a crowdsourced process improvement group here on campus. Currently, we're specifically dedicated to ESR, so to all these new systems that are coming to campus. So we decided instead of consultants, we are going with crowdsourcing expertise that are already here on campus. So to share a little bit more about that, why are we not using consultants with all of this process work that's going on? Number one, the expense. Consultants are very expensive. A lot of times they come in, they spend a lot of time learning the business, especially the unique business. I'm sure most of you know that are here on campus, how unique campus business to be compared to a lot of the outside world, very special needs. A lot of times they come in with a very cookie cutter approach. They gain all this knowledge, they spend all this time building all this knowledge, and they help out, and then they leave and take all of that knowledge with them as well. System knowledge, business process knowledge, all of this time that they spend here that we're paying them to learn, they usually leave with that knowledge as well. So we decided to do it a little different and source experts that we have here on campus. System knowledge is going to stay here on campus. These individuals are going to learn and apply new skills, right? Job growth, new experiences, they're going to have foot in the door. They'll get to know a lot of different areas on campus and have a lot of impact and interactions with those different areas and build these relationships here on campus. And at the end of the project, they stay here on campus. They are campus resources. So where did this idea come from? It really took looking at all of the training and all of the money we have invested as a school into process improvements, learning, Lean Six Sigma certifications. We got some numbers just from Extension and from the OSI, Organizational Strategic Initiative. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that organization as well here on campus, of all the trainings they've done, of all the certifications that we have currently here on campus for staff. So if you look at that number in the middle, and it's growing, I'll say this slide's a little outdated. I think it's up closer to 2,000 right now that we have. And that includes white, yellow, green, and black belts here on campus of Lean Six Sigma certifications. So I wanted to put this together. There's a little kind of slide to show you where we got these people from this organization. If you look at the areas of campus, it's pretty much all over the place. Not one area. So it's people bringing in this expertise that they have, both Lean Six Sigma expertise, as well as their campus knowledge and their expertise in different areas of the campus, different places they've worked, to come together to create this Lean Bench, so this crowdsourced process improvement initiative. I am one of the managers. Sean Monroe, Prachi Rahija is here as well. She is my co-manager with the Lean Bench. We are just actually finishing up with cohort 1. So the idea behind the Lean Bench is you would have a cohort, so a group of, we had 10 Lean Bench members plus our 2 managers that we started this year with. So at the end of this year, we are actually celebrated all the accomplishments cohort 1 is going through, and we are now currently have applications open for cohort 2. So a little plug, if any of you guys are interested in being part of this community, applications are currently open. You can go to our website. It's leanbench.ucsd.edu. We're going to have a question and answer session a little later today. That's at 11 to 12. 11 to 12.
In the snake room.
In the snake room, which is right on the other side of the pool tables and everything right here in place. So come, ask any kind of questions you want, and I encourage you all to apply. It's been an awesome experience so far. It's been kind of a roller coaster the first year. It's very much building as we're going, very similar to a lot of what we've seen in ESR with all of these projects and programs. We know there's a lot of things that have to happen in a very short time. So that's a little about who Lean Bench is. Now, what do they do? So we talked, they do process improvement, but what does that mean? So as I explained, ESR is a lot of new software, a lot of new systems that we're going to get on campus. Oracle, Tririga, Interfolio, all of these different systems that are going to come to campus, which is great, right? We're going to have all these fancy new tools. But what does the software really do? It's really there to support our business processes, to take care of our business needs, to do things like enroll students, to do things like make sure they're able to graduate on time, make sure we have the right people in the right areas of the facilities, and take care of all of this payroll and finance that goes behind all of those. So the processes are pretty important, right? The software is just there to support the process. So what happens if we just have, these paper processes and we have this brand new shiny system and we say, let's just shove all this process and make it do this and not really look at it. I've always kind of equated it to, we're buying a brand new race car, and we're going to take the engine from our old Civic and put it into that race car. It's going to look nice, it's going to be fancy, but it's not going to go very fast. We're going to be kind of in the same area that we are now. So that's really what Lean Bench is doing as part of the ESR process. Is ESR program is looking at all the processes underneath that to really understand, what's out there. What are all the, I mentioned silos earlier, what are all the silos? How is all of these different areas of campus doing things differently? A lot of times it's because it's grown out of need in all of these different areas. And we're such a large institution. We have a health center to support. We have general campus with all of these classes going on. We also have Scripps Institute of Oceanography. So a lot of different needs over time have grown different processes in those areas. So then when we look at these brand new systems, how do we successfully make this system do the process when there's 30, 40, 50 different versions of the process out there on campus? So that's really what we have structured our very kind of streamlined. Here you could use this for every process review we do on campus, and it's repeatable for all of our Lean Bench members. So everybody that comes in has this expertise. They have some campus expertise, they have some Lean Six Sigma expertise, then they're able to use these tools in this kind of packaged approach to go through all of these process reviews. So what is the first thing we do? We are a resource that gets put onto essentially every project that's out there as part of ESR. So the first thing we do when we go to any of these projects is say, what's your process landscape? What does this mean? Research administration, you guys have COHORT coming, which is the new system that they're going to implement. What is research administration? What's there? How do we help you? What do we work on for you? So that's where we came up with process landscapes. When we first started with them, they were like, oh, just fix pre-award for us. And we were like, okay, what's pre-award? And they started rattling off all these pieces of pre-award. And we were like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. That's a really big area of the business. So we realized, you can't just take those big chunks. But we wanted to understand kind of at the high level, what does research administration mean here on campus? So we built out this level 1 process landscape. Right? There's pre-award and there's post-award. That's pretty much all of research administration with compliance, which is a big piece, but that kind of goes through and connects with all of those processes. And we have data and analytics that go along with it. But again, just looking at pre-award, it's hard to kind of jump in and do anything there. It's like trying to boil the ocean. It's not very practical. So we continue to break down, okay, what is in pre-award? When you say pre-award, what are we talking about? So we have level 2 processes. So we say, okay, here's some big chunks. Identify the opportunity, create the proposal package, develop it, submit it, get it approved, get the award. Those are still pretty big chunks. Pretty hard to work on any one of those individually. So we actually created level 3, where we go down and create, called decomposing the process to really understand what's all there. So we actually, this is the public-facing version. What we did first is said, what's in scope for Kuali? So what is our new system going to support, and what's out of scope for Kuali? Because again, this is the process landscape, not the system landscape. So we were very careful to say, we want to know all the business processes that are involved with research administration, and not just what we're going to put in the new system. But we know right now, Leanbench is the resource for ESR, so we're going to work on the ones that are in Kuali because we want to get those protected so we can put good processes into the system. We actually have a different version as well to say what are the biggest pain points now? What are these processes with the most variation? So we know it's done differently all over campus. What are the ones that users have reported friction in, right? Those processes that maybe you're putting the same information in 5 different areas. Maybe you have to maintain some of these processes on spreadsheets currently that are not going to be very able to be transformed into a system. So we prioritize these and we define areas that we knew we were going to need to take deep dives to really jump into these processes and say, okay, how can we help here? So just to give an example, these are still, I know they look like smaller buckets here, but develop and finalize budget is one we just wrapped up actually. We identified pretty much anybody who is currently putting together proposal budgets on campus has their own templates and their own formats of how they put up budgets together. So as you can imagine, when we have Kuali, it has a budget module, and we're saying, how do we set up this budget module? What do we need to have? It was a lot of discovery in the beginning of that process to really go out there and understand all of the different pieces and put them together and say, where are the commonalities and where are these specific needs that we need to understand to make sure Kuali is able to support our complete book of business. So within each project, we have this overall process landscape that gives us our potential process review targets. Like I said, we prioritize these and we understand which targets we're going to go after. And then we have this packet of tools that we use for all of our Leanbench members to do every one of these individual process reviews. So process review, like I just gave that quick example of develop and finalize budget, that's a process review. So within each project, we create the landscape, and then we have a lot of these process reviews that happen afterwards. So to give you an idea of what we do within each one of those process reviews, we always start with the DMAIC model, really define, right? What is this process? What is develop and finalize budget? What does it mean to everybody involved? Then we're gonna, of course, do measurements, my favorite thing. Analyze, get together, and really talk about best practices. Leanbench, we said we're actually gonna kind of stop at this point within each one of our projects and really take a deep dive into Leanbench's involvement with this process review. Because we're going to do some improvements for the process, but there's also going to be a whole nother side of improvements that come from the new system, that come from implementing the options and all the high-tech software side of that new system. Then, of course, there's the control piece that'll come along after implementation of the system. So to give you a little idea, we have a process review charter. Most of you might see this and say that's a project charter. Little different. So a lot of these tools you'll recognize from the Lean Six Sigma world, but they're kind of tailored for one, UCSD, and two, for ESR, to really make sure that they fit the needs. So it's like a modified version of a lot of the Lean Six Sigma tools just to fit the specific ESR process improvement need, because we have some constraints. It's not like we're usually starting with a very clear defined problem statement, but we're starting with a process area. So we're saying, here's this area that we know there's issues in and that we're going to put into this new system. So we also have constraints of the new system as well, right? We don't want to design some crazy new process that's going to be the best process ever, but it's not going to work in our brand new systems that we already have. So a lot of it, you'll say, hey, I know that, that's this, and we call it something different. A lot of the vocabulary we've adjusted a little bit too. So you'll see this is really our starting point to describe what the process is, the description, the start and the end points, which are really important. I go back to that process landscape at the start of every one of my process review meetings just to keep the scope clear about what we're talking about, because it's so easy to jump to other interconnected pieces of the process. And then known friction points and some of those other details, right? They know there's problems there and they're able to call them out early. That really helps us do our discovery phase. A lot of our discovery phase is about making the process visible. So understanding what the process is. We love process maps. So current state process mapping is really what we're doing. And this is a sample of what we did for route for review and approval. It's a process. We have 4 different sponsored project offices that these proposals go through on campus. So we have 4 different routing models, 4 different approval models, very different ways to do it across campus. But what we did is we met with each one of these groups and said, how do you do it in your area? Started with whiteboarding the process, just asking a bunch of questions. Okay, what do you do next? How do you do that? Who does it? You know, what are the important details about this step of the process? And then created little samples here you can see on the screen. I know it's really hard to see, but all of these current state process maps. After that, my favorite part, we started collecting data around all those process maps. You know, what's the volume? How frequently do you do this? How much time does it take? What are some of the other data points around this? When we looked at route for review and approval, interesting things were what's the amount of proposal dollars that we could potentially miss out on if we configure this wrong in the new system. That was a really large number for this one. If you think about, you know, over $1 billion a year coming in some of these research awards. So all kinds of data we gather within each one of these. I don't want to prescribe just one set of data, but it's really going through that process and understanding what's going to be the relevant data for that process when we go through the next phases of this. So we define, we start measuring, and then our analyze and our improvement is very much done with all of the subject matter experts for each one of these processes. I think I started off this process by going in with that group and saying, I've never created a proposal in my life, and I probably never will. They're the experts. They're the ones that do these processes every day. They're also the ones that are going to be using these new systems to do this process. So it's very much focused on the subject matter experts and all of their expertise. We are mostly just the facilitators in this process improvement and not the actual ones coming up with these ideas. It really comes from the subject matter experts and helping guide them. So we have these process improvement events, Kaizens, if you would, where we get everybody in the room. We have those current states all blown up, huge and big. We do Gemba process walks with each one of them. Most importantly, so they understand how the other areas of campus do it. I always say that the process maps are the what are they doing? And the best part about these walks with everybody in the room is asking the why. So why do you guys do it this way when we have that piece over here in our process? And you get a lot of the experiences and you understand really where that came from, which is important if you're going to have that next talk of how do you improve it and how do you change it and what's the best practice that we're all going to adopt. So these have been great so far. Every one of these, you have people coming from all over different areas of campus, different motivations for process improvement, but all working together, breaking down those silos and really thinking of it as a UCSD best practice. Where are we all going to move to together in the future? Now, all of that work gets summarized in this one-page summary for the Executive Governance Committee that we present to. So we come up with all these process improvements, do all of this work, and then we have governance structures within each one of those projects have their own governance structure, which makes sense if you think about it as you wouldn't want the facilities experts voting on a process for research, right? So we have those different governance structures where we all get together and say, here's the recommendation from Lean Bench, and specifically from all the SMEs that have worked on this, and here's what we recommend as the best practice in the future. Is this good with you guys? Have feedback. And this is our key. This is our one pager that we hand to these executives to say, here's all the summary. We have a lot of slides and everything else that goes along with it. that we all on Collab. So Collab is the campus.
Hey, how'd it go?
Hello. Al is talking to us. Yeah, so we store all of this information, right? All of the data we're gathering, all of the work we've done, all of the reasoning behind the recommendations. If you look at the one for route for review and approval, I mean, we had agents weigh in on it, audit, and give their opinion. So there's all kinds of different sub-pages. But we wanted to make sure that all of this lived on, right? We built these process landscapes, like I showed earlier, processes that wouldn't live in Wally, even that we might we know in the future, continuous improvement, that we'd come back and look at these. So we wanted to make sure we left all these artifacts behind and able for everybody to come in and look at all of them. Good. One of these projects, we're looking at that process.
Well, no, actually, it turned out.
So behind the scenes, I didn't mention it just yet, but behind the scenes, we're working software to make sure what we design actually is going to be the best practice within the software as well. So it goes from the process improvement side, we say, okay, here's what we need as a business. Here's our business requirements. Here's how we need to do this. Here's our streamlined vision for the future. That's the what we need. And then we turn it over to the system configuration experts to really define that. How is the system going to best deliver this? So to adjust those configuration options within the system, which eventually comes back. You have user acceptance testing where campus staff is actually going to get in there and say, here's what we designed. Here's what I said I needed it to do. It was configured to do that. Now let me test it and make sure it all works together. And that's it. So it's repeatable. We put this package together. We have these tools. Every new cohort lean bench member that comes in, we have training for them, and we have managers set up at each level of these projects to kind of watch the overall landscape and all the interactions between the different processes. But then we're able to just assign these resources, these lean bench members, as this is your process review, this is yours, this is yours, and we all collaborate together, but we have a structured approach to it. So it's very repeatable, and then everybody's kind of talking the same language. It's really rolling out this new campus, particularly right now, ESR as well. Perfect. So I wanted to leave a lot of time in this one for questions. I saw some hands already coming up, so feel free, just fire away at me. Yes.
How is this system for the research administration working with the health science on this?
Yeah, still working on mine.
We've had a lot of communications with them. As you know, OnBase is now a new piece of ESR. We actually purchased the enterprise OnBase license to campus. That's going to require a lot of changes to even health sciences, how they use it now, because it's a hosted solution as opposed to it's a cloud-based solution as opposed to the other version where you have your own servers and everything set up. So there's a lot of transition, but within each one of these, I would say we've aimed to make it obsolete. A lot of these, I specifically don't use the term shadow system, which I hear a lot, that has like a negative connotation. I always say support systems, because no one just usually creates these for no reason. It's usually to fill a gap in the current systems that you have, and the things that you need to do as a business don't necessarily match. So there's these support systems that come
But did you look at how they had that set up as part of the process improvement?
Yeah, so part of that current state, I almost want to blow it up for you, but part of the current state that we did for health sciences, for just that routing one, for example, because they use OnBase in there, we actually have those process boxes called out. So I think OnBase is these blue boxes. So if you see the different color coding, during current state, we always take all of these systems and what they're doing for the process into account. Like I said, the idea is to make them obsolete, so make them not needed. So to understand the functionality they provide within that process and say, how can we leverage this new tool to do that for everybody, right? How can we use this new tool so we make it obsolete, essentially? I don't want to say
What I'm saying is, like, there was a lot of thought and things that a lot of this process improvement piece was already done to build up that system.
Yes.
And so a lot of your looking at the process and stuff like that looked at what they were in order to get to that.
Absolutely. But for example, in this one, Isabella was one of those SMEs. When I say we had all these SMEs, we did this current state. We went and met with the SMEs and we said, how do you do it now? And really understood all of those pieces and not just the what's, not just what's it doing, but why. Why did you have it there? Why did you need this part of the solution? We said, how can we do that for everybody in the future state? Because I'll say how health sciences uses OnBase, OCGA uses Jira, OCTA uses a homegrown system. So there's different versions of it, and everybody's come up with their own kind of ways to meet these gaps. So we really wanted to understand those gaps. So when we design the future state, we actually just have Koali on the future state because we're able to replicate a lot of those pieces within Koali. The idea is that we have these huge enterprise systems coming in to really take advantage of those and not need to have somebody log in 10 different places to do one process, to really be able to, as much as possible, support it within these systems. So yeah, we looked a lot at all of those, and we constantly, through each one of the current states, identified them. Any other questions?
What's the, I guess the application website or email address?
Yes, leanbench.ucsd.edu.
Okay.
It's open through the end of, ooh, I'm really bad. It might be the end of this week. So it's a short period. Actually, I think it's open the end of next week. And it has all the details on there for application. Most of the Lean Bench members, it's a variable amount between 15% and 25% that they're able to dedicate. So they still have their day jobs. They're still in these areas of campus, doing everything, and then they dedicate this time. So part of it as well is getting management approval, getting your supervisor approval. That's one of the pieces of the application that goes along with it. But then these people are able to take all of these applied skills of process improvement back to their departments when it's all done as well. And that was the idea behind the rotating cohort, is to allow people, we actually saw a lot of our Lean Bench members move in job positions throughout the year. It was a challenge, but it's an awesome part of the cohort that they're learning these new skills and they're able to elevate.
And there's no cost component to that time?
No, yeah, it's really a dedication of time to this huge initiative going on campus. So it's really awesome. It's kind of a cool concept of crowdsourcing this expertise. You had a question?
Yeah, can you go to slide 20, please? Or 21, here, yeah, the handoff slide. So
yes.
Once you create a new process and you hand it off to the next step, does this team have access to everything that you're trying to implement to confirm that the changes are actually possible?
Yeah, so we work closely with the project team as well as the system implementation team throughout all of these steps. So they're always super aware of all of this. This page that I put up here is kind of a good example. You'll see it's business processes, but this is actually the quality page. So we're not storing this off on some Lean Bench website. We're actually storing it in the project page where all of the project information is going to go for every one of those steps on the next slide. So we're doing the process side. We're working really closely with the people who are going to configure the system, right, to understand all of the different aspects. The limitations are the confines of where we need to end up with the process. And then at the end, they're usually really familiar with everything that's being recommended for the future state, but everything lives behind on their section of collab.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So I know you're working behind the scenes with development experts, and I hear you talking about like budget module for Koali, but eventually there'll need to be budget module for Oracle. So are you already kind of talking about all those integrations between the different systems?
Yes, so I showed the process landscape for Koali, actually just wrapping up, almost done with the process landscape for the financial system, which is Koali. They're calling it FIS, confusing because that's also facilities information system. So yes, we just finalized we're just about finalizing the financial landscape. We actually, a good example of that is the post-award version of the research administration landscape. We copied almost directly over to the financial side because there's so much integration there. Setting up funds, doing allocations within funds, where we could do that in Quali, we could do it in Oracle. Where is it going to happen? How are they going to integrate? We've done a lot of the work on the process side, but that's a good one where it's so technical on the integration piece that we're actually passing those over to the integration experts within the group. Things like iPass and how does the information flow back and forth. But we did do all the current state documentation for the process, so we really understand, okay, here's what we need to support. We're hoping a lot of those can be completely automated within the system, so it's taking that manual process and just using the system configuration. So those are different examples where we actually didn't even do the future state process design, because we're hoping the future state process is nobody actually doing the process, it's the system doing it. So that's where we passed it over a little bit early there to the configuration team and said, here's all the information. And that's an interesting one because it is going to have that kind of piece in quality, the piece in the financial system. But we've also realized that things like allocations, creating funds, we're going to have to do for other things that aren't just research administration. So we need to know how to send it from the research administration quality system to the new Oracle system in the correct way to set up all this money basically that's coming in from research funds to be expendable by the researchers. But we're going to have to do that for other things that have nothing to do with research funds as well. So really understanding all of those kind of pieces to it, that the chancellor could say, here's 10 million for this new project. And you have to do those same kind of steps with that money as you would with the research money. So yeah, so we're doing a lot of the current state in those ones and then turning it over. It's kind of how it's different. So we have this package and we always say within each one of these process reviews, it could be different. That's why I have that stop and think of where do we go from here? How do we progress through this one? And there are times where we say, you know, we're not going to do the improvement here. We're going to pass it over to you guys to really use that system to do the improvement. Yes.
For the Lean Bench program, how are you handling the handoff between cohorts?
So there's some in the cohort 1 that are reapplying that will come back. Everybody that's working on process reviews from cohort 1 are going to continue. That might not come back next year for a lot of different reasons. We'll actually finish up the process reviews they're doing now. Cohort 2 is going to be like a brand new cohort. So first thing we do is a whole onboarding and training of all of these different tools, different ways we're doing things. And then we have more onboarding. So we have a whole kind of training structure set up to go through all of this work that'll eventually happen. And then we have individual onboarding for each project as well. So you can imagine the project teams are different and all the project structures are different. So whenever we deploy a Lean Bench member onto a certain project, we also onboard them to that project. So it's kind of like, here's the project team, here's how this one kind of is structured. We use our same tools, but we're able to kind of adapt them for each project. So it'll be a lot of training for the new cohort when they come on, and it'll be a lot of, you know, here's how we're doing things. And a lot of the learning is hands-on once they get into the process reviews as well. So we actually split it up. I know Prachi was here earlier, but like I said, there's a Lean Bench manager assigned to the different projects. So for example, I'm doing research administration and finance right now. So I will kind of coordinate that behind the scenes with all the Lean Bench members. Say, okay, here's how we're doing all of this and make sure the right communications are happening as well within each one of those. So yeah, a lot of training in the beginning.
There's an online request for you. It
Yes.
says from Mary Chu. Can you please share the Word products or templates you showed during the presentation today?
Yes, a lot of them are on the Lean Bench site, especially the Collab site. I realize not everybody has Collab. So we have a whole Lean Bench page on Collab as well, which is part of, you know, very similar what we're using through all ESR to store all of this documentation. We are currently working on an external version of the Lean Bench website as well, which will have these documents and templates. So very soon, leanbench.ucsd.edu will also take you to those. But I'll make sure that these templates get packaged up with the output from this presentation and that we send it out with all of that.
Thank you.
Will this training be available for other UC campuses, or is it currently?
Well, this one's kind of specific for ESR, right? Like I said, we have some Lean Six Sigma tools, and a lot of these pieces are from Lean Six Sigma, and we've kind of developed it to work with inside of ESR. But there is a ton of Lean Six Sigma training available through UCSD and also going out to other campuses. We actually did a speaking tour this summer where we did a lot of these presentations at different, IT groups and different groups of universities. And we referred a lot of them back to the extension here on campus that does green belt and black belt. Specifically here at UCSD as well, we have organizational strategic initiatives, OSI. Angela, hello, she's part of that team, but they do a great yellow belt training that we have rolled out all over the place. Actually, every one of these projects is actually getting trained up, so all the SMEs have went through yellow belt training as well, which is a really great program. It gets everybody kind of thinking what process improvement is and speaking that language.
And is that available online? So, and I asked because a few of us are from UC Davis.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're not going to be here much longer.
I believe we are doing the training at UC Davis.
There you are.
Under which question? The yellow belt.
Yes.
Yes, under Hampton's group.
Yeah, I know we went to, what was it, UCCSC this year.
This guy, yeah.
Yeah, I actually presented with Hampton, one of the ones, but I know it was even your CIO was there. He was really interested in future training there at UC Davis and taking advantage of some of these tools. So I think you guys have some on the way. Awesome. Any other questions? Oh, you have plenty of time. Feel free, shoot them out. If you do have any more specific questions about joining Lean Bench or want to ask us anything about the experience or any of those other pieces of just everything going on with Lean Bench, we have a Ask Us Anything session today at 11 o'clock, right on the other side of the Price Center. We'll have posters up outside. It'll be me, myself, and Prachi there to answer any kind of questions. So if there's any you want to ask right now, but don't want to ask publicly, come over there and see us. If anybody is interested in getting involved, like I said, the applications for cohort number 2 are open right now. We definitely welcome everybody's involvement. We'll be going through those applications at the end of this month and hope to welcome the new cohort number 2 early in January. Send out notifications to everybody that was accepted and start training right away. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the rest